Like many people planning to retire, I watch quite a lot of videos on YouTube trying to work out if I actually had enough money to retire. Now, don't get me wrong, I got some amazing advice along the way, but there were two things that actually nearly completely derailed me from retiring. So what I'd recommend you do, just pause this video now and go to Google Gemini or ChatGPT or Copilot, whatever your preferred kind of AI or search tool is, and ask it to list 5 financial things to consider before you retire. And I bet you both of these things will appear in the list. I'll tell you what, I'll do it for you. Here we go. So I'll run through these. There's actually some good stuff in there, but there's also 2 items that actually nearly killed my chances of retirement. So the first is this one. A common rule of thumb is to aim for 50 to 66% of your pre-retirement income for a comfortable lifestyle. Now, my retirement income is less than 40% of my working income. If I'd followed that advice, I would have been working probably until I was 60. But instead, I actually retired when I was 55, and very glad that I did as well. Now, at the point I retired, I was paying about 25% of my salary into my pension, which I didn't need to do anymore once I'd retired. Now, the recommended amount that you pay into your pension is a percentage that is half of your age. So I was 55 when I retired, so that was about right, paying just over 25% into my pension. I also finished my mortgage when I retired. And there's another 20% of my salary that I don't need anymore. I also stopped paying university fees for my 2 kids who both just finished their degrees. That was, another 20% or so. So just factoring these things in meant that my expenditure had dropped by over 60%. Now, imagine things were different and I was spending 80% of my salary on rent and bills. Then I would actually need a pension of at least 80% of my salary, wouldn't I, to be able to continue to afford my rent and my bills. Now, this advice of having between 50 and 66% of your salary in a pension, I don't think it's of any use at all. In fact, I think it could be damaging because it might stop you from actually doing the correct thing, which is to add up all your actual expenses in retirement and check that your pension is enough to cover the actual expenses. So here's what I did. A year before I planned to retire, I installed an app on my phone, and it was called Snoop, and there's lots of others, but what I did is I connected it to all my bank accounts and my cards, and every month it categorizes the money I spend into headings such as, utility bills, food, shopping, insurances, that kind of thing. And I could clearly see what my monthly outgoings were over a whole year. Now, since I've retired, I've kept on using the app, and it gives me, pretty good confidence, really, that the amount I needed when I'd planned to retire was actually accurate. So expenditure such as the mortgage that I was going to be finishing, the university fees that I didn't need anymore, I actually excluded them from the budget in the final year as well, so that I knew that my retirement budget would be as expected. And to be honest, it's been pretty accurate. So taking 50 or 66% of my salary before I retired wouldn't give me a budget that was just way more than I needed, which meant I've worked a lot longer than I needed to as well. So I'm crossing that off my list of useful retirement planning things. Now, the next one in this list that irks me is the 4% rule. You may have heard of this. So here it is in the advice list. It says, use the 4% rule as a guideline. Withdrawing up to 4% of your savings per year may help your money last 30 years plus. So the basic idea here is that, say you've got £200,000 in your pension, then take 4% of this each year, which is £8,000, and you can use that to live on. And this is supposedly meant so your money doesn't run out. Now, here in the UK, the vast proportion of retirees are eligible for state retirement pension. Now, if you retire, say, before 67, then when your state retirement is due to be paid to you, then you're likely to want more than £8,000 before it's due, and then less than £8,000 after it's due. And this will kind of balance things out and flatten out, your expenditure a little bit, won't it? Now, this would then go some way to balancing things out at the time, but not everyone wants to have a balanced retirement. Some people like to work out their retirement budget so that they have more money when they're younger and actually more able to make use of that money, maybe traveling more or doing, going out more, that kind of thing. But when they're very elderly, that they'll assume that they'll be less able to use it for them things. Now, but others want to leave large amounts of inheritance when they pass away to their family, and others don't want to do that. They want to make sure that they spend everything before they get very elderly, because they're worried that they may then be forced to spend it all on care home costs. Now, I've got a spreadsheet that you can download from the website at timetoretire.co.uk. And, it's free for use. And this is intended to help you model your savings and how they could last. And it gives you, some options there to kind of adjust things based on what your requirements are. So feel free to go down to the website and download it. Now, the fact is, we're all different and we all have different priorities. And these kind of blunt numbers, I don't think are very useful at all.